So hello everyone, I am Sayan Mukherjee. I'm a fourth year PhD student working in the Department of Earth, Atmospheric and Planetary Science. I'm working with Professor Yunyi Elitali. We just recently published a paper on compressive sensing for seismic surface wave acquisition. And the reason it's very important is that seismic surface wave acquisition now it's very important because this is a kind of non-destructive testing that helps us investigating what's going down below the subsurface, specifically closer to the surface. That's why we use the surface wave instead of traditional body wave technique. And the reason it's important because it is very high frequency waves, so it can tell us what is with a very high resolution what is going on beneath the surface, very closer to the, and that's why a lot of people are interested in rather than just investigating like the plate level tectonics and in the crust what's going on there. So that's where the interest comes in. So basically we have standalone geophones that basically we just go and deploy it anywhere on the surface. So you can put it by the roadside, you can put it inside a cornfield or soybean field, anywhere, and it doesn't require any wire. So you just go and just dig a small hole, maybe like a couple of centimeters, so that you can just bury the sensor, just being it with the level of the ground, because it has a GPS connection that it still need to get to keep it going. So we can't bury it too deep under the surface. And then this one is battery operated, so it like lasts for around 30 days. So if you're collecting for a longer time period, then you have to redeploy it after 30 days, and we get this node back to our lab, and then we retrieve the data from there. So basically it's recording every kind of vibration then generated, that is generated by every kind of human activity. So like we walking, people driving their car, they're biking, and this is like a very near field thing. There are also far field noises that we can also record, but we basically record everything that is like within its sensitivity limit and the frequency limit it can record. You have to first decide what is signal for you and what is noise for you. So like what we use for our research is noise for a lot of people. So generally, traditionally, when people used to do exploration geophysics, they were interested in the body waves, which is the primary wave or the secondary waves. So they used to think surface wave as a noise for them. So they used to eliminate that. Now for us, that's the point of interest. So noise for someone else is actually signal for us. Similarly, for the surface wave, lot of surface wave community, this kind of ambient noise or anthropogenic noise generated by all this kind of human activities actually used to be noise for them, because they want to just see the coherent waveform. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to use the incoherent waveform and try to make it coherent using some advanced signal processing technique, and trying to use that. And the reason we are trying to use this signals is basically it's everywhere, ever present, every time during the day, during the night. So we can continuously monitor the subsurface. There is nothing is stopping us basically. So you have to first decide which frequency band you are looking into, what type of waves you are looking into, and that will help you to do this advanced signal processing so that you can focus on that signal. This kind of noises, because it is very local to that area mostly, so it generates very high frequency waves, high frequency surface waves. And the reason it's very important for us is basically when you can analyze the surface waves, which is very high frequency, you can get very high resolution information of the very top few meters. If you go very lower frequency waves, that gives you a lot of information about the deeper subsurface, but loses resolution for the top 10 meter or 30 meter, something like that. So that's why we are interested in these waves that has a very high frequency content and gives us a very high resolution analysis of the top few meters. Yeah, so the technique that we have developed, it works for every technique. It works for a traditional way of doing surface analysis. It works for this noise analysis techniques also. The thing that we are doing is on the basis of a field. It's called compressive sensing. So basically what we do is basically we collect the data, we record the data and compress it so that we can store it at a very small space. And then when we want to use the data actually for our analysis, we can actually retrieve the whole data form. And that has been done traditionally in image processing technique. So if you know, like once you save an image in JPEG or other formats, that actually compresses the data. It doesn't store the whole image because that will be huge. And you can know also, you can control that, like how much, what is the pixel size you want to save. And this is actually based on compressive sensing. And what does this software do when you try to open the image? It actually basically reconstructs that image. You don't know that's going on in the behind in the signal processing thing. That's where the software comes into that picture. It's not merely just opening. It's not a viewer. It's actually processing the image to build the whole image from that saved data. And that is actually the science that we are doing. We are using this technique into our seismic data processing and data saving technique. And this has also been done in seismic wave community, but the way they do it basically in an industry scale. So what you can assume when you are acquiring a data for an industry project, you have tens of thousands of sensors, multiple sort locations, which are being used to generate those vibrations. But for our surface wave community, we are a bit lower on the scale in terms of using the sensors, how many sort points we can use. So we want to see how many sensors we can actually use. And there we are using this technique, compressive sensing, to design the seismic array. So generally, we'll build a seismic array, which could be a linear array, deploy the sensors along a line, which could be a square grid, deploy the sensors along different line on the square. Different ways you can build that grid. But how do you know where to deploy the sensors actually? So traditionally, people, because they don't know it, they don't want to make the problem very simple. So what they will do, they will just make an event sensor gap, like 10 meter or 20 meters, something like that. And that is traditionally has been used because it follows some sampling theorem, and that was being satisfied, and they were fine. Now, because we want to limit the amount of data we collect, now we are trying to see, is it really required to put it in an event sensor gapping, or we can do it in an irregular way, and that is actually has been an advantage. People have shown that if you just deploy it in an irregular sense, you can what happens is it generates some artifacts, and that's why traditionally people never used to do that. They always used to deploy it evenly. But when you do it irregularly, it will generate some artifacts in the actual signal that can actually mask the signal. So it's basically mimics the structure of that actual signal. So it can be masked. But people have found it there is a specific irregular design. If you deploy it in that way, it converts that masking artifact into actually noise that can be eliminated by doing signal processing. So this is the science that has been used in my research. But the way we are using it is basically, we're not just relying on irregular design. We're actually specifying, depending on the signal, at what point you should deploy it so that you can collect optimal amount of data that can be later retrieved to do advanced signal processing, and that will show better results than that existing techniques. So the way the science can benefit is basically, now we are going to a very long term, as I said, we are going for continuous monitoring, because we want to monitor the subsurface 360 days for a very long time, multiple years. So the way it could be useful, now you can think if you do the data acquisition very traditionally, for this long-term data acquisition, the data can be huge. The storage space is now a problem. You can only save so much amount of data that can be processed later. The way now we are designing the array, it will limit the amount of data you are recording. So if you are going for long-term monitoring, it will be very useful for that purposes. And that's where actually I want to head towards, to use this technique for long-term monitoring to see whether we can optimize the data acquisition.